down are happiness, but in the end they too are suffering. Whether one is bending or one is stretching, whether one is bowing the head or raising it, whether one looks straight ahead or to the side, whether one is breathing out or breathing in. Suffering always follows the body. From conception and birth to death, there is not a single moment of happiness. You enjoyed pleasures as if they were happiness. When the sickness of lust increases, you seek women outside, but the more you find, the more your torment increases. It is like when one suffers from scabies, one goes near the fire, one scratches one's hands and roasts them. At that time one feels a little joy, but in the long run the sickness increases in intensity. This little joy, it too becomes the cause of sickness. It was not a true happiness or the elimination of the sickness. Those who see people with scabies act thus, feeling pity for them. The person who has renounced desire has the same feelings towards the lustful. He has compassion for these angry madmen, burned by the fire of desire, who suffer more than they enjoy. For many reasons of this kind, we know that the body has the nature of suffering and is the cause of suffering. The yogin knows that the body is merely impure, impermanent and suffering, but he cannot do otherwise than nourish it. It is like parents who have given birth to a son. However vicious the child, he is born from themselves, and this is why they must feed him and raise him. The body is, in truth, not the self. Why? Because it is not independent. It is like a man sick with an illness of wind, unable to raise or lower his head, unable to come or go, or like a man suffering from an obstruction in his throat, unable to speak. This is why we know that the body is not independent. If a man has something, he uses it as required. This is not the case for the body. As it escapes from all influence, we know that it is not ours. It is in this way that the yogin meditates on the body, the impure, impermanent, painful, empty, selfless body possessing innumerable defects of the same type. The various considerations on the body are called mindfulness of the body. C. Mindfulness of feeling. In possession of this consideration called kayasmrtyupasthana, the yogin pursues his reflections and asks himself why beings are attached to this body. It is because of pleasant feeling. How? From the meeting between the 6 internal organs and the 6 outer objects, the 6 kinds of consciousnesses arise. From these 6 consciousnesses arise the 3 kinds of feelings: unpleasant feeling, pleasant feeling, neither unpleasant nor pleasant feeling. Pleasant feelings are loved by all beings, unpleasant feelings are hated by all beings. As for the neither unpleasant nor pleasant feelings, people neither reject them nor cling to them. Thus it is said, evil-doers and monks, gods, humans and small worms. Amongst these beings divided among the 5 destinies in the 10 directions, there is not one that does not love happiness and hate suffering. Out of error, mistake and ignorance, they do not know nirvana, the abode of eternal bliss. Considering pleasant feeling, the yogin truly knows that it contains no happiness but only suffering. Why? Happiness, i.e. true happiness, is free of errors. And yet all the pleasant feelings of the world come from mistakes and contain no reality. Furthermore, while greedily seeking the happiness of pleasant feeling, one will encounter great suffering. Thus it is said, those who go to sea encounter heavy winds, the waves rise up as high as the Kalaparvata. Those who go into the army to fight cross very dangerous paths and perilous gorges. Noble Sristans must bow down when approaching vile people in order to satisfy their sexual desires. These many great sufferings all come from attachment to happiness and to cupidity. This is why we know that pleasant feeling can give rise to all sorts of suffering. Furthermore, although the Buddha spoke of the three kinds of suffering, one of them, that of pleasant feeling, merits the name of suffering because in it happiness is rare. It is like a bushel of honey which, when thrown into a big river, loses its smell and its taste. Question. Happiness such as it is conceived in the world, having error as cause and condition, is suffering. But the concentrations practiced by the saints give rise to a pure happiness which itself is real happiness. Why? Because this happiness is not derived from delusion or mistake. How then could it be suffering? Answer. It is not suffering. Although the Buddha said, all that is impermanent is suffering, it was only in regard to impure dharmas that he was speaking of suffering. Why? Worldly people are mentally attached to impure dharmas, and as these impure dharmas are impermanent and perishable, they give rise to suffering. But the mind does not become attached to pure dharmas and, although they are impermanent, they do not produce sadness, lamentation, suffering, torment, etc. That is why they are not called suffering. And besides, the bad contaminants do not take shelter there. Furthermore, if pure happiness were suffering, the Buddha would not have treated it separately in the truth of the path, since, as suffering, it would have been included in the truth of suffering. Question. There are two kinds of happiness: impure happiness and pure happiness. Impure happiness is lowly, vile, perverse and bad, pure happiness is excellent. Why does one become attached to the lowly vile happiness and not attached to the excellent happiness? One should become attached preferentially to the excellent happiness in the same way that one would prefer to be attached to precious objects of gold or silver rather than to straw or to wood. Answer. Pure happiness being excellent, wisdom abounds there and, as wisdom is abundant there, it can eliminate attachment. In the impure happiness, it is the fetters, thirst, etc. that abound, and thirst is the root of attachment. The true wisdom inherent in pure happiness is able to eliminate attachment. That is why it is not attached to the pure happiness. Furthermore, pure wisdom always considers universal impermanence, and because it considers impermanence it does not produce the fetters, thirst, etc. It is like a sheep that is kept near a tiger. Even if it has good grass and good water, it does not get fat. In the same way, even though they experience pure happiness, the saints nevertheless contemplate impermanence and emptiness, and that is why they do not produce the fat of desire. Furthermore, pure happiness is inseparable from the 16 noble aspects.